Ask the Podcast Coach for May 25th, 2024.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there is the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy Memorial Day weekend for those of us here in the United States. We get Monday off, which is kind of nice. So it's the beginning, kind of the official beginning of summer for us here in the Northern Hemisphere. Welcome, everybody.
And we need to ask the chat room if there is an echo, because there shouldn't be, but my meter sure made it look like there was one. And
They'll let us know.
They will definitely,
they'll
definitely let us know. But
sure.
If this is the first time you're watching this live, you'll notice right above it, it says askthepodcastcoach.com/question. That is, if you want to jump into the video, you can do that, and we will actually answer your question. We do prefer that you have clothes on, and you're not somebody who's just going to scream Baba Booey at us and things of that nature. But, you know, the one thing that I can't even find, well, here we go, comments and reactions. There we go. No echo. Yes, the chat room has spoken, which is good news, which makes me happy. And you know what else makes me happy, Jim?
A good pour of coffee.
That's
maybe?
it. That's it. A good pour of coffee. And of course, that coffee is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Because you got to remember, they're going to see you before they hear you. And Mark is going to make you look spectacular. He's now done Ask the Podcast Coach, School of Podcasting, Podcast Rodeo Show, and the soon-to-be Podcast Hot Seat. In fact, if you go to podcasthotseat.com, you can see that artwork from Mark, or you can just go to podcastbranding.co and check out all the awesome pictures that he has done. He's done hundreds of artwork, but you're like, well, okay, I've already got my artwork. I was thinking more of a website. Yep, he does those. What about a PDF for a lead magnet? Yep, he does those. Anything that you want to look good at, you want to go over and talk to Mark at podcastbranding.co. He'll sit down with you one-on-one and make sure that whatever he's designing fits your brand. In fact, a lot of times he just wants to know about your show and then let him do the branding part. That's his specialty, not you. You're not a graphic artist. There's really only one place you want to go, and that is podcastbranding.co.
And of course, big thanks to our good friend, I don't know, I have trouble saying that every week, Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week in Napoleon, the movie, I think both the new one and maybe an older one. I've been watching the clips of that on YouTube. I didn't go to the theater. It looks spectacular. I don't know if any of it's actually true. So I need to head over there, listen to it. How much of the movie based on a true story is it? Well, check it out. Check it out today. It's a long weekend. Maybe you need something more to listen to based on a true story podcast.com. Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
The chat room is saying that I am out of sync. So I will be the first to go, Godzilla. Okay. Don't know. Yeah, I do see where my video is a little choppy, and I'm looking at it. The one thing, I rebooted my PC. I did not reboot the Mac today. So maybe it's
I think you're routing something. I think you're routing something through something and it's slowing it down. I don't know. It's Ecamm, and I don't totally understand.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's using my Facecam Pro, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm seeing the video now. I am a little weird. So this is why it's
not
better.
that bad. It's
better.
not that bad.
It's better to listen to me than watch me. So
It's not that bad.
But here's the thing, Jim. First of all, you know, we got our buddy Jody Kringle over at voices and vocals.com. She joined as an awesome supporter, and I don't know, because on one hand, like, look, she's done stuff for Coke. We played all her jingles, but there's a part of me that, like, I'm worried for voiceover people, and here's why. Let me play you something I did last night. So this is me doing. This is a rough draft of the soon-to-be podcast hot seat. So this is me. Welcome to Podcast Hot Seat. We are the friend who lets you know, hey, you got some broccoli stuck in your teeth. Yeah, right there. We make meh. Okay, so I took me, that's me doing it, And instead of somebody saying, hey, this is how I want you to do it, on 11 Labs, and I think I have an affiliate link for them. If you go to supportthishow.com/spelled out 11 Labs, that'll probably take you there. But then I was like, well, what if Deep Voice Bruce did it?
Welcome to Podcast Hot Seat. We are the friend who lets you know, hey, you got some broccoli stuck in your teeth.
And it's, it goes on. Here's Chris, I thought was kind of boring.
Welcome to Podcast Hot Seat. We are the friend who lets you know, hey, you got some broccoli stuck in your teeth.
We get the idea. But then we had, where is, I think it was this one that was sounded like a 6-year-old girl.
Welcome to Podcast Hot Seat. We are the friend who lets you know, hey, you got some broccoli stuck in your teeth.
So it was, as opposed to where before I would go over and give them the text and then have to tweak, make this more expressive, and then try to put in weird pauses and stuff. I was like, it was interesting. So I went over, here's the I'll tell you what, let me, this is 38 seconds long. So I'm going to ask you a question when we get done with this. And, but here's the,
I'll be ready.
yeah, right now, this is we would call it the intro of the show, if it stays the way it is.
Improvement.
Nope, hold on. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay.
Welcome to Podcast Hot Seat. We are the friend who lets you know, hey, you got some broccoli stuck in your teeth. Yeah, right there. We make meh shows sound good, and good shows sound better. Our goal is to help you make content that grabs your audience and leaves them wanting more. Welcome to the Church of Constant Improvement. Here's your host, multi-award-winning Hall of Fame podcaster, Dave Jackson.
And then, of course, I would, have this music boil down. And welcome to Podcast Hot Seat, where we do the thing with the annoying voice. So here's my question, Jim. How does that make you feel? What do you when you hear what I'm going to call fun music, but just the music and all?
I like it.
Okay, because here's
makes my shoulders move.
Because the thing that got me was originally I had these big big hard rock stuff, and I was like, because the one thing that kept coming to me was when we talk about the podcast Rodeo show, you would always go, oh, I'm not going on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too afraid. So this was let's make it fun, little broccoli joke to make it sound like we're not too serious about that. And I was just so does that sound a little more friendly and bubblier than?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
Because that's what I was going for. Yeah. And
it's
so
catchy. It's catchy.
Yeah. And I like the music because the one thing, Your Podcast website, another artwork, I should say, that was done by Mark. And that one has jazz, just piano. And I was like, this is kind of a mix. It's funky and piano. And and let's see, Randy says it would be relaxing before being placed on the hot seat. Yes. Well, it's going to be a little more, not
Kind of got the dating game vibe. The like a 70s game show kind of. Wow! If you had the bow chicka wow
yeah.
guitar, the whammy bar going on, whatever that is. Yeah, it is kind of relaxing. Yeah, it's not bad. I like it.
Okay, so Craig says I have a friend who is a voiceover, and she's not worried. She thinks there'll always be business who want to work with a real human. That is the thing about it. I was like, okay, this is it took me. Yeah, it's because I was because I love Wayne Henderson. He's the guy, ooh, that's a good question. But what was interesting is what I wanted was a sarcastic Jim Carrey. That's what I had in my head. Somebody going, well, you're the person that tells you got broccoli stuck in your teeth. Now the interesting thing is I wrote down in 11 Labs, it was some woman named Sarah. And I thought the nice thing about it is if I ever want Sarah to say something else, I just record myself saying it, upload it. And it takes 10 seconds for this to take my voice. And it was but I was just I don't know. Daily Sports History says I've actually used AI voice copy from my YouTube shorts. It's worked
For
pretty
me.
good and made it easier to produce. Yeah. So
Yeah, have you seen about a month ago, Reid Hoffman came out with he partnered with 11 Labs and somebody else to make a Chat GPT version of himself. So the 11 Labs technology sits on top of the GPT,
yeah.
the large language model. And if you go to YouTube and Google Reid Hoffman, you'll see him. He actually interviews himself in this. So he's asking himself, the AI generated himself, because 11 Labs is also doing video now. And
Oh
it's
wow.
a one, it's a good looking version of him. Two, it's coherent and you might have a hard time telling the difference between him and his AI counterpart. His AI counterpart, when you're asking it a question, looks down and then like it's thinking, and then it'll look up, and when it's talking, it'll look. You know how we look away
Yeah.
sometimes when we're answering a question or whatever? It does that. It when you're asking it a question, it nods its head like it's listening to you. And then the answer is pretty good. Now, the real Reid Hoffman gives it some feedback and it takes it very well. It's like, thank you for that feedback. I appreciate that, right? But if you want to see the future of what AI could be, and this is the scary part, isn't as much, I think, the voiceover work. That's gone, just to be honest. Like if it's as good as this now, just imagine it 2 or 3 years from now. That stuff's gone. We're gonna not have a need. In a couple years, and I could actually do this today. I could feed my voice into something and it could publish my voice. For most people, hard to tell. I think that work is done. But the scary part, Dave, is could you do an Ask the Podcast Coach where I was completely AI? And I don't think we're that far away from that. I mean, what if we did Ask the Podcast Coach and we were both bots? Now that could go
Well,
sideways, right?
what
But
what I'm
yeah,
hearing, and it's one of those where I'm like, man, I hope that doesn't come true, is they were saying that, it used to be the big thing was membership sites. And they're saying
mhm.
what they're going to do now is they're just going to suck all your information into, like, I have somebody built one of these for me and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, you could ask it what's the best microphone under $100. Then it would say the, Samsung Q2U. And if you clicked on it, it would take you to the episode where I said it. And I was like, that's kind of cool and all, but some of that stuff I call consulting and I get paid for that.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
was like, I'm not sure I want to put that on my website. So it's interesting, but I'm hearing that education in the future, nobody wants to sit through a video. They're just going to chat GPT it. And then you can ask the bot questions. And if not, then you schedule it with your coach. And I was like,
No.
I'm like, I don't know
So
about that.
we thought that was true with Google when, search came out and like, we don't need these things anymore. We can just find it with search. And that wasn't necessarily true. I think there's always a space, there's always a space, or there's always going to be a space for the human. We just have to continue to do this smarter and smarter and smarter things. Will AI eventually be able to replace us? Probably. Like, let's just be honest. We'll create something that can do all those things and maybe do it faster. But for now, I think we just have to continue to figure out those ways to do the human stuff
Do the
that
human
AI
stuff.
can't do.
Yep.
Do the
Lean into
human stuff.
being human. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Ralph says, I just found another podcast. They're actually claiming to be podcast coaches and they're doing something called Roast the Show. But I like the hot seat idea better. Yeah. To me, when I hear roast, it means I'm going to say really nasty things about you and upset your children if you're Tom Brady, apparently. Then Daniel comes in. Is that the podcast that doesn't have their podcast on their website? Yeah, that's actually oh man, Justin Jackson is one guy. He's from Transistor.fm, and the other guy with the long beard runs the Podcast Marketing Academy. He does some interesting research. I've had him on my show. I can see his face. I cannot remember its name. Ralph is saying it's the Get More Listeners Academy. They have a show about why your podcast is not growing, but for coaches, their audio is terrible. not even balanced between two hosts. Yeah, I've listened to that show, Why Your Podcast Isn't Growing. The only thing that makes me scratch my head about that show, and I would say this to the guy's face, so I'm not really throwing shade, is why did you write 5 or 6 books about podcasting under a different name? Like, podcasting's like, I don't get it. So, because he's from Britain, I think he has a bit of an accent. So if his name was like something very Middle Eastern, okay, I could see where people may not, it's sad as it is, but people may not want to, I don't know. But I just, to me, that's just a head scratcher. But I love podcasts, and I'm going to put now this sounds like I'm like, look at me, but like when I see a podcast consultant, he said in quotation marks, that doesn't have a podcast, I'm like, would you hire a jockey that doesn't have a horse? I'm like, that's the one that, there are those people that they don't make it to episode 7, but when they make it to episode 6, they throw out their shingle and they're like, I can tell you how to get into Apple. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we shall see. But, and then Craig was talking, I heard about this, ChatGPT got a little bit, Scarlett Johansson, they asked Scarlett Johansson, hey, can we use your voice for this new thing where now you can talk to ChatGPT instead of type? And she politely went, no, I don't think so. Thanks anyway, but no thanks. And then they came out with a voice that sounded an awful lot like Scarlett Johansson. And she was kind of like, don't make me sue you, and it was like, yeah. So that's, but the video thing you're talking about, there was a company, I don't know that they were on AppSumo, but anyway, this guy comes on and you see his picture at the top. And then you see this video and it's the same guy, same like shirt. And he starts talking to you. And he's like, you can do this and you can do that, and blah, blah, blah. And again, it looks super real. And then he goes, oh, by the way, this version of me that you're watching is AI. And you're like, what? And he explains, like, just don't move your arms. Like when you basically let it clone you video, he goes, just don't move your hands. He's like, well, we'll put those in. I think you put them somewhere like this, and then it animates.
Yeah, you might get 6 of them. You might get 6 fingers.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I never comb my hair on Saturday mornings. So if I show up to ask the podcast coach and my hair looks good, my face is clean or whatever, the beard looks good, you definitely know it's AI at that point. You're like, nobody can fake this.
Well, and people have heard me say I've been thinking of raising my price at the School of Podcasting. When I hear that the Why Your Podcast Isn't Growing, they want $8,000 for 6 months of coaching, and mine is $80 a month. Again, I'm starting to sound like the Walmart of podcasting, and that's a perceived issue. When people go, well, that can't be any good. It's only X amount of money or whatever. So. Tricky, but yeah. So
a lot of people shop at Walmart, Dave.
That is true. I'm there every Friday night, rocking and rolling, getting my family pack of chicken thighs, and
lots of money made by Walmart families.
Yeah,
lots of money. So and don't be too hard on yourself. There's a business plan for everybody.
Yeah. Well, here's the fun thing now that it's summer, because it's always fun going to Walmart because there are people at any time of the day that shop in their pajamas, but now that it's summertime, there are people that shop in Walmart half naked, and you're like, whoa, oh, okay. But Jim, it's time to play. Guess the microphone. I got to make sure it's okay. I'll just read this. This is a fun-filled question, and she says, which I'm assuming it's a she. It could be a he. Which audio quality issue is better, they say in quotation marks, to deal with? So I record in a house with less than ideal audio quality, and I've got 2 setup possibilities. I record in my room. It's an open space. My voice sounds crystal clear here, but the background noise is rampant and can't always be covered up with background music. Even recording late at night doesn't fully solve the issue, as this room faces a highway and an ocean. There's a constant whooshing noise all the time. Now, option number 2, I record in a closet at the back end of the house. The background noise is virtually gone, but my voice sounds hollow and tinny. It sounds like I'm speaking through a can. I'm honestly quite fried and dealing with serious decision fatigue. So I've come to this subreddit to see if maybe there's a really simple solution I'm just not seeing, or as an audience, which would be more forgivable to deal with. So the question is, Jim, which microphone is she or he using?
Blue Yeti for sure. Blue Yeti
Blue
for the
Yeti.
win, or any condenser mic.
That is
right?
it.
Any
That's
condenser.
correct. That is the
Yeah.
Blue Yeti. And that's what I answered. I was like, yeah, what you want to do here is check to make sure you're using the Blue Yeti properly. You talking to the side of it. So I always tell people, talking to the logo, and on the back side of that microphone, put it to the one that looks like a heart, or just throw it away and go buy a Samson Q2U or an Audio Technica. But so
Well,
that
and they
was,
want to put it 8,000 miles away. That's they don't
yeah.
want the mic and the camera. And I'm like, okay, like that's a different kind of mic then. If you don't want it, you should really use a shotgun mic if you want to get, or a lapel. Like, I mean, but
Yeah.
if you don't want it in the camera shot, but they want to get it out. So they, I see they set it on the table and they put it, 3 feet away, and then it's super far away. The other thing, and we know this is, we talk about this on the show all the time, but for some reason, all my friends bought Blue Yetis after the pandemic, and they show up and they're like, "Look at my great microphone, Jim. Thank you." And I'm like, "I never told you to buy that one,
Yeah.
but okay, all right." And they want to turn them backwards and point it right towards themselves, and they think, I'm like, okay, all right, let's turn it around, get the logo facing you, right? Then tilt it back, and I want them to tilt it back this way, away from them, and then they what they do is they pull it closer and closer and closer. No. You got to talk into the mic. It's so hard for them. They think it's this kind of mic, a Q2U or a ATR 2100 or whatever, that kind of mic, a 58 SM58. And you're like, no. That microphone is actually it's set in there a little bit differently. No, they all, and I just like, okay, just do it. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. So it's that's the hard part about that mic. If Blue would just put the microphone, doesn't somebody own them now? They got bought by somebody, right?
They got by Logitech. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they take that microphone and just tilt it up so it's facing the top of the mic, then everybody else would do it right.
Rob Walsh uses one, and he's got his on a boom arm with a windscreen, so it's 3 inches from his mouth, and he's got it pointed in the right direction, and he's got it set to only pick up from the front. And Daniel makes a great point, but it's not a YouTube podcast unless there's a microphone in the shot. So maybe they had to move the mic further away to get closer to the mic. He's joking.
I don't. Yeah, I know. I just, it's so funny. They just like, oh, I don't want it in the shot, and you're like, well, you can't have it far away. I mean,
Well-
you well, and then getting it switched over. You know what? A lot of folks also don't. They think, they get on whatever software, Zoom or whatever, Streamer, and if you're on a Windows box, your default, it's going to pick up. And Mac does this too, but it's going to pick up the default device, and you might have your webcam set as your default audio device. That's one of the things I tell people all the time. Make sure you go in on Windows and change your default audio device to your microphone, so that you at least improve the odds of that picking up the microphone whenever you open a Facebook message, Facebook video, or a Zoom or whatever that you're doing. So yeah, I always have people, my trick is I just tell people, they're like, hey, how does my mic sound? I'm like, I don't know, tap it,
That's
do
it.
this. So I know you're on it to begin with. And then if I hear him tapping it, then and they always, on the Yeti, they always tap on the top.
Yes.
You're gonna kill me.
But Craig says I'd go with a closet and a different mic. Yep. Closet's a great place to record. I mean, there's a picture during the pandemic where Ira Glass from NPR is in his closet. If I remember right, he had shorts on, but he still had a suit and jacket on. I'm like, not quite sure what the deal was with that. But Dan says, I used to record a mile from a U.S. Air Force base with 3 dogs, 2 cats, on the other side of the door using a condenser mic, a DBX 286S. And he said the time of day got rid of most of the background noise. That would not work here in Akron, Ohio. I live about, 10 blocks from an airport that I can see from my backyard. It's a little baby airport, but in the morning, everybody's taking off to fly to Cleveland or whatever. And at night, everybody is having their joy rides. And I have what used to be, if you could picture a stadium, like a small little baby football stadium, and they decided not to use it. So they tore down the front of it and just filled it in full of dirt. So I have a big giant bowl of dirt at the end of my street, and every kid with a mini bike is on that bowl of dirt every night. Just, yeah, it just sounds like a bunch of bees every night. Here's a great suggestion, Chris from castahead.net. My suggestion would be switch to the Shure MV7 Plus. The noise suppression is surprisingly great using their Motive Mix software. Yeah, they just came out with an update for that. So the only thing I found about the MV7 is their windscreen. I have one sitting here, honest. But anyway, their windscreen was a little thin, like you could see through it. And so I know some people were buying the windscreen for the Shure SM7B and putting it on the MV7, which made it look even more like an SM7B, because I was popping that thing pretty bad when I was playing with it. But in Audacity, Randy says they have a noise reduction effect that take a sample of that noise and no voice heard and then highlight it through the audio. Yeah, it's pretty handy. The thing is, go ahead, Jim. You're probably going to say what I'm thinking.
No, you go. You go ahead.
It's okay, but it's okay. This is noisy, getting better, pretty good. Oh crap! It sounds like we're underwater. There's a very, and I heard somebody yesterday at Libsyn, and she was releasing her first show. And normally, like, I'm doing tech support, but I had to let her know. I'm like, hey, the beginning of your show sounded great, because she was trying to put in ads. And so all of a sudden I went to the thing that started after her ad, and I go, what did you do? I go, it sounds like you turned your noise gate up, holding up my fingers here, this much too much. Just a hair over will ruin it. And I haven't heard back from her, but is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, it was, just remember, right? I mean, it's math that does this noise reduction or noise removal for you. In the frequency, if you think of the frequency like the numbers between 1 and 10, right? And as you're recording in Audacity, that wave is a representation of just numbers between 1 and 10. I'm simplifying it, but just hang tight. Then when you're recording that noise, depending on the dynamicness of the noise, that noise may just be in a frequency that, say, represents 7, but it could represent 3 through 7, if depending on how dynamic the noise is. Audacity's not smart enough when you do that noise reduction. It's not smart enough to know when someone's talking to not do the noise removal. It removes that frequency from everything. That's why you get the underwater sound. So you got to be careful of the actual noise itself. If it's in a broad frequency and you remove it, now Audacity's nice because it doesn't mess up the file. You can always just go back. But if that doesn't always work, if that noise is in the frequency of your voice, and so just be careful on that. It's not magic; it's just math. So if you have a high pitch or a low pitch that's outside the vocal range, the vocal frequencies, in most cases you're fine. It's not going to affect those. If you have a noise that's in the voice range, which our voice range is pretty tight, so the average, and we're all over the place. We're all different, but that's a pretty tight frequency. So just remember, it's magic. I mean, it's math, not magic.
Yeah, it's again, one step too much, and you go from wow, there's a little bit of noise in this to wow, it sounds like they're underwater. And yeah.
Well, that too much is like the broader the frequency that you're pulling from. If you can tighten it in, of course, it doesn't. The tighter you get the frequency, it doesn't take out all of the background noise, right? I mean, it's a give and take on that thing. The best solution is don't have background noise if you can at all. Right?
That's it. Yeah, it's like, hey, where I record, it's really noisy, and I'm trying to get rid of the noise. Well,
yeah. Well, Todd the Gator says it well. He says, leave good. If you're hearing something in the background, like record it. I mean, actually get quiet. Don't make any noise yourself and record that like a mower or the sound of a train. Get that thing recorded. Just stop talking for a second. Let it play. Record it so you have a great sound sample of it. Then you can use that sample to remove it, so to speak.
Yeah, one of the reasons when I lived in Cleveland, there were two reasons. Number one, I wanted to separate life and podcast life. And so I actually got an office for the School of Podcasting. But one of them was we moved right next to a 4-lane busy highway. And there was nowhere in the house that I could not, get away from that sound. So I moved a bit, and that got rid of it. So, because there are just times. Now, there are things you can do, like we talked about the noise reduction. There's all sorts of AI tools. There's Studio Sound and Descript. There's things like that. And again, with that, Studio Sound is an awesome tool, but I never put it at 100%. There's just, at 100%, it's gone too far. It's always like 90, 89%, something like that.
This would be, Dave, this would be a great use for the AI and these voices. If you had your own voice sample, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to get to that point, right? We're going to get to that point where we have our own voice sample. And then you record, you can do that same thing for your guest. Get your guest in there, record it, have it turn it into an AI voice, so to speak. Then have AI go over that and replace the audio, the dirty audio, with clean AI audio based on what you said already, right? And that would clean it up. That would give you, because AI is pure digital at that point, right? There is no background noise. Well, and so I think we're going to get to that point as well, where like with Descript, a tool like Descript, you could record it in, do the transcript, make sure the transcript is correct, and then say, now AIify this. Ooh, maybe I should get AIify.com. AIify it, and it would overwrite what you said with your AI voice. It would sound like you, and it'd be perfect. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Here is Robo Dave chiming in.
What do you want me to say, Jim? This is Robo Dave. I don't think I sound like me.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
It's very close. It's a little boomy, and it kind of, I would say get closer to your mic and some of those kinds of things, but not really. But yeah, I think we're getting to that point where I think a couple years from now, you'll be able to sample. You'll just have your own AI.
That's
11 Labs. This is what 11 Labs does. This is their.
Yep.
If you have bad audio for the cloning, your clone will sound bad.
Right.
That's it. Because I had one of the voices on their website had a plosive problem. And I was like, well, I'm not going to use a clone that I didn't have to run through deplosive. I'm like, that kind of defeats the point. I'd like somebody to sound good. And so they do have some filters there that you could say, what kind of accent, male, female, is it a professional recording? That was the one I was like, yes, I would like one who sounds decent as opposed to, here's my clone.
Well, your clone has too much bass, right? That was recorded. I think that was recorded with too much bass.
Yeah, that probably ran it through the big bottom and all this other stuff,
Yeah. But it sounds like you on School of Podcasting as opposed to you live on Ask the Podcast Coach, right? It's just kind of a different sound, a different feel. Well, and that's with these AI voices, that's going to matter too, is the quality of that recording is going to matter when you go to record it. You're going to want to record those in a really, I noticed I was in Descript this week. We've been evaluating it for some things at work, and I've noticed there's now an area you can go into, and this has probably been there for a while, but I just saw this. You can go in and record this statement, right? This sentence or this paragraph that they have you read, right? And it kind of builds that file for you. And then we did some testing with the replace field. So I said mild, but I wanted it to say wild. So I just changed the spelling of it and right-clicked and said regenerate, and it made me say wild instead of mild. It was crazy. And it sounds good. I was like, well, okay, that's pretty nifty.
The thing I thought was interesting when I was playing with this, if I go back here.
Here's your host, multi-award-winning Hall of Fame podcaster.
Hall of Fame. I was like, what? And then I went over and I listened to me. You know what I said? Hall of Fame. I was like, so it really did an interesting job of reproducing, what I said. We have a problem with the staff. Hold on.
What do you mean too much bass? I think I sound fine. I'm leaving.
Yeah, Robo Dave's out.
Robo Dave's a little bassy.
He's a lot bassy. Now they listen to that. I was like, wait a minute. It's like really.
What do you mean too much bass? I think I sound fine. I'm leaving.
But hear how there's no pause there. There's nothing. You
could add a pause though, right?
Yeah, I could go in and but that was the part that used to take I a half hour to put enough commas for a pause and this and that. So the fact that I could just go, what do you mean too much bass? I'm leaving. And then it would, sound like me. So, yeah, Ralph's a big Descript user. He says, I use that in Descript, but the issue is it won't do it with video, even though it would in the past.
No, but they're messing with stuff all the time over there. Who knows? Yeah.
It's interesting. Descript and Riverside are somewhat of a roller coaster. And what happens is they'll introduce a bunch of features and they won't work as expected. Let's just go that route. And so you'll get a onslaught of people going, what is going on? I hate this software. I'm leaving. Is there an alternative? Which I totally understand. And then because the company now knows, hey, this isn't working, they'll fix it. And for about a month, I'll have people like, you have to use Riverside. Riverside. You got to use it. It's amazing. And I'll go and I'll think I should check it out. And then like a month and a half later, it'll be like, I don't know, man, this thing's, should I use StreamYard or Squadcast? And then, so they're constantly, because it's not overly competitive, but between StreamYard, Squadcast, Riverside, if you wanted to, Clean Feed, there's a lot. And then there's a bunch of other ones out there. It's getting a little, not super crowded, but there are alternatives. And if it doesn't work,
competition is good in this case.
It is good.
Right? It's good. It drives innovation. I think we're getting some really good innovation in the space. I think we're going to get, the next wave of some of these edit pieces, like Ralph's talking about Descript, it doesn't handle the video very well. So, you make an edit. I brought a video in, I took some words out. It gets jumpy in there. And you kind of, those jump cuts a little bit. And you kind of think, you know what? We actually have the technology to be able to process out those jump cuts and make those a smooth transition. And it's a little bit of the deep fake technology, but it's a little bit of the, some video editing and some smoothing of that. And I've talked about this before. Once you've got the transcripts, so you create these transcripts from the audio, and they're not 100% correct, but an LLM tuned could fix those for you, not almost 100%, super fast. Like feed that whole transcript into an LLM, especially one trained on you, and then say, okay, because that's all this AI does today. These LLMs, they just predict the words that should be there.
Right.
So it looks at the transcript and it's like, well, okay, the transcript got this word wrong, but it's going to most likely be this. That the accuracy of that are pretty good. They just need to run those through an editor, an AI editor, right, or the LLM editor. So I think we're pretty close. Again, I think we're pretty close I'm seeing some of that happening in some areas, and I think we're really, really close, both on fixing transcripts to make sure they read correctly. And then once you've got the transcript and you've reviewed it and you're like, hey, this is 100% correct, apply that to the video and then smooth the video out so it makes it look like we're actually saying those things, or that it's not a whole bunch of jump cuts in there. I think that is the next thing that we'll see coming out on some of these services. The engines, any PC being made today that has an Intel chip's also going to have a neural processor in it. I shouldn't say everyone, but many of them will. And the whole idea of that is to be able to do some of this processing locally on the PC there. So a couple years. I don't think we're that far away. 3 to 5, maybe.
Yeah, Daniel says, I don't mind jump cuts much, but I hate the over-aggressive jump cuts people are making. It's extremely jarring. Yeah. It's like clipping out even parts of words. The other thing that I've noticed, and it's got to be one of the, all the shorts are starting to look exactly the same. But I've even seen Philip DeFranco is a pretty popular YouTube guy. He does the news. And what I have found is somewhere he has an automation that's like, go to the beginning of a scene, slowly zoom in, and then go back to where it was, and slowly. So like, it's just this whole thing where it's like, it looks like a bad 3D movie. That it's one of those things that, and then once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. I'm like, and we're zooming in, and now we're not, and now we're zooming in. It's like, So Ralph says, I met someone with Descript. and they are getting close to creating an AI where my English voice can become a foreign language. Basically,
easy.
yeah.
Easy.
I've
that's easy.
Libsyn sent me to something, and they had me speaking in German.
For
It
sure.
was like Samsung Kutu. It's like what? And there was a guy at the event I went to in Cleveland. It was like, hey, something. I forget what the name of the company was. And what it did is not only did it convert it to Spanish, but it made sure the Spanish matched your mouth. And I was
Yes.
like, that was pretty impressive. Oh, wait,
Uh-huh.
hold on. We have
again, if you have an AI image, if you're creating that image based in AI, it knows what it's going to say. So in German, it can just make your lips do what they're supposed to do, which just sound angry, like in like you drank a whole gallon of milk. Yeah.
Well, everything in German sounds like you're angry. You could say, it's like, and they're like, what did you say?
Sorry, German friends.
Sorry,
let's just sorry, German friends.
That means
send your angry letters to Dave at schoolpodcasting.com.
Well, to a non-English speaking person, school means I love my cat. You're like, really? It sounds like you wanted to punch me in the face, but Oh, wait, hold on. He's back. What's your
who ate my yogurt in the break room? Ugh.
Yeah. All right. I didn't eat his. Did you eat the yogurt in the break room, Jim?
I didn't.
Yeah,
but how'd you get that?
That is UGH.
Oh,
is how I spelled that.
Hey, who ate my yogurt in the break room? Ugh.
See, that's
good.
That's
at the end.
I know. That sounds really good. Typically, a reader would just go, ugh.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
But the H, where Ralph hit this on the key is to also add the speech nuances of a native speaker.
Yeah.
Daniel
sort
said,
of.
Yeah.
Sort of. There are some things we do that you would want to take out. Some stuff that we do. I do this all the time. I don't finish sentences. And you kind of, it'd be nice if I did. Now that's my fault, but it would be nice. You kind of want this nice blend, I think.
Yeah. Danny Gable, a friend of mine, remembers from Herr Frank, the Schnitzelbank. That's only a joke that me and Danny are going to get, but it's Ich liebe dich. That is,
we love you too, Danny.
Yeah. So, yeah. And Daniel, I think Daniel's working on an episode about video thingies. That's the technical term. I think some audio/video tools have essentially become word art. The podcaster thinks, do you remember word art where all of a sudden everybody had curved letters? They look or sound cool, but they're not actually consumable. For example, the video captions that zoom in on or animate one word at a time look cool, but they're actually not very readable.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. And then Craig brings up a great point. I think ugh is German. It could be.
Well,
yeah.
Say it that way. If you say ugh, then it is. Yes, for sure.
Interesting.
Again, send your angry emails.
Yes.
Dave@school.com.
Interesting. Yeah. Here's another fun question. Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, that's interesting. I clicked on the note and it popped up in its own little window. Well, this is fun with Note Joy. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So it did this. Hey all. So I have three part-time jobs. Right there is when I want to say maybe now is not the best time to start a podcast. I could be wrong. Including this. So apparently they're counting their podcast as job number 3, which isn't paid. My podcast, I think, is doing pretty well, and I'm wondering if I'm able to get ads yet at these numbers or anytime soon. We have 14 episodes out. So again, right there, maybe just a little too soon. Maybe.
Well, maybe not.
But here's the thing, 14 episodes, and the last one is 7,000 downloads after 2 weeks. Well, that is actually impressive. And the latest, I believe, will track also, hopefully, by the numbers. Prior to that, we were around 1,500 to 2,000 downloads for the last 9 episodes. See, what we need to know is that per episode or for the month, or what are we looking at there? Progressively getting higher for the most part. We're able to qualify for advertisers on Podbean, but that was weeks ago. We haven't had anyone try. Although this month we make the next level of networking. Okay. There's so much information online, nothing concise enough that doesn't seem salesy. Am I able to get ads on my podcast at this level? Typical or not typical? it says we're at the top 5% of podcasts, which means someone has been playing with listen notes. And it's like, yes. So top 5% on listen notes is don't listen to listen notes. Congratulations, you're 5%, and you beat that show about WordPress from 1982. Although I don't know that there were any podcasts in 1982, 2002 maybe. Are you all just reaching out to people? Any help is great. Thank you. Sometimes Google makes me loopy. And this is from a lot of work but no money. So, can you get ads with that amount of downloads? Sure, you can get downloads with if you did a show that was hyper niche. So if it was people who were raising like a really rare breed of like give you an example. This is a real life example. Glenn the Geek said his smallest show was about some super specific horse breed that not many people had because they were really expensive. And he said, and that was one of his most profitable shows. He said it had the smallest audience, but the people that listened to that show, the advertisers knew had money because their horse was expensive. And so he was able to get advertisers on that show because of the niche. There's a very old video. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but it's like 20 years ago, probably at this point. It was Gary V saying, "Can I get ads on my podcast?" And he just went to the phone book and he said, "I do a podcast about beer or whatever." I think this is when he was doing wine, whatever. And he said, "I could just just call this guy and say this. I have a podcast. You want to sponsor it?" And so if you want to sponsor, and that's really the goal, go get one. You can, they may not be paying exactly what you want, but if you want some money, if you want to go to Libsyn Ads, if you have, I believe it's now down to 10,000 downloads a month. So if you're getting 7,000 downloads an episode, you're definitely getting 10,000 downloads a month. You can use Libsyn Ads. Now those are automatic and they're, they pay maybe whatever it is, it's like $4 CPM if you're lucky. So
but we know auto ads for small audiences. The money's just not there. You're going to need to listen. If you can't call somebody or email somebody and ask, then the answer is no. You have to be able to ask somebody to sponsor you. You have to work it. You have to sell it, especially at the smaller level, right? There is no magic around this. You just have to call. You've got to contact somebody and say, "Would you be willing to give me money in exchange for me saying things about your product?" You can't make that call. You can't send that email. It'll never happen. So I ask people all the time, "Can you make a sales call?" If they say, "Oh, I don't like sales," I'm like, then you're in the wrong business. Like this is all about selling. Let's just be really, really clear. We sell things here as influencers. If you think it's just about good information, you missed the boat on this. We're salespeople. This is what we do, right? We sell things. Now, if we're not selling anything, if we just want to talk and put something out in the ether, okay, then you don't have to sell stuff, right? If you want to make money, this is what we're talking about. If you want to make money, you have a small amount of downloads, you got to be able to sell, right? From that standpoint. I think small podcasts underutilize the affiliate link concept. And I always say, look, find an affiliate that it matches as close to what you're doing as you can. Get a code, put the code out, see what your engagement is. It's the easiest way to tell what you're going to get from an ad. Like you need those numbers to be able to sell the ads anyway. So if you're going to do what I said, if you're going to do, if you're going to do sponsorships on your podcast, right? So get an affiliate, put it out there. Like I did a Coinbase affiliate a couple years ago. This might be 4 years ago now when Coinbase was first coming out. And it was a $10. If you sign up at Coinbase, you get 10, I get 10. It was awesome. I think I made like $200 off that thing. I had like 20 people. Well, okay. I can go in and now track that. I can say I started talking about it here. I put this code out there. This was the response time, and this is how many people I had come. If I put that together, I didn't because I don't sell ads on Home Gadget Geeks. But if I was going to, I could put that together and say, hey, look, if we talk about your product, this could be an expected outcome. Are you in or not? Right. So that's to this question, can I sell ads? I don't know. Can you? If you want to find out if you can do it in your podcast, put an affiliate link out there or some kind of call to action where you get those responses. Yeah, Daniel joined. He says he joined Coinbase through my link. A bunch of people did. It also told me, I might have a crypto audience here, right? All of a sudden I realized, I've got some people who are interested in this crypto thing. Maybe I should do another crypto thing and test it again. And it just gives you some data, right? This dynamic ad stuff for most people, it's just garbage. Like, stop doing it. It's garbage for you. You don't have enough people that it matters. Do some affiliate stuff, collect some data, get some numbers, figure out who your audience is. Then you got to be able to sell. I don't know. What do you think, Dave?
I think you're
full of it.
Well, number one, I think some people equate sponsorship with success. Like, my podcast is only successful if I can sell ads on it. And I'm like, even if it was $2, CPM, we'll enjoy your 0.002 cents per download. They're like, yeah, but I'm making money with it. I'm like, okay, it is better than a poke in the eye. But when I was doing my weight loss show and I talked about the Total Gym, because I have one, for a year, I sold one, made my $75 commission, and that was for the year. Then I started talking about these things called fit decks, and I don't think they make them anymore, but you could basically deal yourself a workout. And so I bought one. I was like, man, I'm surprised at how sore I was just using no extra weights, just me doing push-ups or whatever. And I was like, I could really see turning this into a game. Like, if you had kids, this would be a fun way to do this. And I remember I was still teaching at the time, and I had it set up that if I earned a commission through like Zapier, it would do this, do that, and would go to my phone and make this little cha-ching sound. And I'd be in class, and I had to turn off my phone because what was happening, because I only made, I think, $1.50 a deck. They were like $9. So I made like 10%. But the problem was people were buying like 3 and 4 decks, because there was like fit deck, and then fit deck for pregnant women, and fit deck for old people, and fit deck for whatever. And so people were buying like 4 or 5 decks at a time, and I was getting hundreds of dollars a month on something I was getting $1.50 at. So it's really affiliate stuff that I talk about a lot in the book. Profit from your podcast. Turn your profits or turn your listeners into livelihood. I talk about this, that when you get the right product for the right audience, all of a sudden it's like cha-ching. Now, I'm not going to retire on a couple $100 a month, but that's one product. I get a couple products doing that. You notice I said supportthishow.com/11labs. Why? That's an affiliate link. So go ahead.
And you with a smaller audience, you're going to have to cycle through things. I did Coinbase for a while, and then it dried up. Like, I reached most of my audience. The folks who were going to take advantage of it did it. And so I moved to Nespresso. And I put an Nespresso link out there, and I said, hey, now Nespresso was a little bit of a commitment. You had to, you got I think it was like $40 off a machine or something along those lines. They sent you some kind of gift, whatever. And those Nespresso machines are $100, $200. That means I had to convince someone to buy an Nespresso machine for me to get, I had to buy something. It wasn't just signing up for account. It was the next level of sales, right? Real money separating from my listener and the company they're buying it from. And that didn't do as well, right? I didn't get as many. It was harder, right? But again, I could track the numbers on that. So you gotta, if you have a smaller audience, you're going to have to rotate through some things. It really will sharpen your sales skills. Because listen, you have to convince. If you have a Patreon account, and this is another great way to start, and you can't convince someone to give you $1 a month, there's a sign there that you're either your content's not compelling enough or you're not great at sales. And you can, thank you, internet, for agreeing with me. I got the thumbs up because I did this. you can that could be a good indication you need to practice on your sales pitch. Like, okay, what am I doing to convince people that they need to take action on something to do? Because your advertisers, they're gonna want to know that you're compelling enough. This is what you're doing for them. You're selling their stuff. If you're not a good enough salesperson to get someone to to have a compelling sell on a $1 Patreon account, well, okay, maybe it's time. I'm not saying you're a bad salesperson. Maybe you just need to brush up on it a little bit. If that's what you want to do. If you say I don't want to sell, but I want to sell ads, that's an oxymoron, my friends. That just doesn't line up. That's what you're doing. You're selling other people's stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
I did a presentation this week at Libsyn talking about marketing your podcast, and I quoted the book Platform from Michael Hyatt. It's a book that I used to read every year. I would start off January reading this book because it's all about making good content. And I'm working on, thanks to Ralph asking in the chat room a couple weeks, I'm working on an episode that is like, what is good content? And I'm going to be quoting that book a lot, but this was one of the slides. The purpose of marketing is to prime the pump. But if people don't want to, in this case, listen to your podcast, and more importantly, if they won't recommend it to their friends, you're hosed. And I don't know if he's Canadian or what with your hosed, but he says you can't spend enough money or be clever enough to overcome a lack of word of mouth marketing. It just won't work. Great marketing only makes a bad product fail faster. And that is I'm like, preach on, brother. Nobody wants to do that. But the other thing, talking about selling, Kevin Schmidlin from Grow the Show made a point. He goes, when you are monetizing your show, doesn't matter if it's, selling a product, a service, affiliate marketing, donations, crowdfunding, whatever it is, you are getting your audience to pay somebody. And he says, do you want them to pay your sponsor, where they give your sponsor $150 and you get 15 of that? Or do you want them to pay you $150 where you get to keep 148? It's like, but nonetheless, whatever you're doing, you're getting your audience to pay for something. And I was like, that's one of those things, it's kind of duh, but it's also really, really true. Because one way or another. So that's the thing. I remember once I did kind of a crowdfunding thing, and I was like, look, here's the deal. I could go find some sponsors, and they may or may not fit the audience, or you could just pay me, and we won't have ads. And I don't remember if that worked or not. It was very much the, like, let's peel back the curtain, let's talk turkey kind of thing. But in the end, that's really what's going on. Your audience is paying somebody. We got some great comments over in the chat room. Jim, you look like you were going to say something.
No, keep going. Let's read the comments.
So first of all, Danny and Rich both said the same thing. Phone book? What is this phone book you speak of?
I still get a phone book every year.
It's a pamphlet now. It's the phone pamphlet and it's just filled with like nursing homes and all this other stuff for people.
It's a giant ad machine. I mean, it's really all phone books ever were, right? They're just giant ad machines.
Yeah. Todd the Gator says the problem I think with a podcast ads is it's based on a TV model, but focused ads to a targeted audience is invaluable. But the ad people, they don't understand podcasting. That is,
well, people think they take an ad and then, I mean, it works on TV because there's millions of people watching those ads. That's why. Even in radio too, as much as we trash radio, that your average, listen, in the city you live in, the worst radio station is probably getting more listeners than you, right? In a lot, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And so the spray and pray methodology in radio works because they just have a lot of listeners. Most podcasters don't have enough listeners to do this spray and pray. You need to be very targeted. You need to know who your audience is, and you need to make every single sales moment, every single influence moment count for what you're doing and making sure. It's why the audience participation, this is where your downloads matter. You know, we talk about downloads and we always say, oh, downloads don't matter. No, this is where they do matter, because it's a baseline to get an idea of, do I have enough? I think Craig had asked out there, what do you think the minimum number is to do ads that way?
So let's do some math, because I always say, like, as horrible as it is, a CPM, if it's not host read, I'm going to say $4, right? So if we take $4 and we divide it by 1,000, so how much am I making per download? 0.004 cents. So let's say I had 10,000 downloads. So I go times that by 10,000, and one more zero. There we go. That comes to $40 per ad. So that's where people are like, okay, I'm going to run 4 ads in my episode. So I'll multiply that by 4, and that is $160 an episode times 4 for a weekly show. That means you're making $640 a month. Now the question is, for a month, is that worth the time and effort to report back to the sponsor, to maybe do a podcast redo because you forgot to mention the diuminium magnet, whatever. It's to me now. Will that pay for your hosting? Absolutely. Will it buy dinner for you and your spouse? Yep, probably.
Well, it's inflation. Let's not get carried away.
It's as long as you like Happy Meals, yes. So,
although even McDonald's is noticing, and they're like, "Ooh, maybe we should pull back a little bit on these $12 Big Macs."
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Ralph hit the nail on the head. I think many people see podcasting as a get-rich-quick scheme, and I always say I'm not anti making money with your podcast, but it says right on the front page. If you open up to like the first very part of this, I talk about how, let's be realistic. The book is titled Profit from Your Podcast. It's not titled How to Get Rich Quick Podcasting. If it were, I'd have to triple the price and start talking about how you can escape the cubicle life and live the life of your dreams starting now, because that's what you hear, for 3 easy payments. So the problem is, and I get this, we live in a microwave society. We want it in about 10 seconds. I remember, again, I mentioned phone book. I remember heating up SpaghettiOs on the stove. And first we had to find a pan, and then you had to, and then for me, we had to light the gas stove with a match because the little clicker didn't work anymore. So you do that, and then it took so long for it to heat up, and then you had to stir it up. And now you open up a can, you throw it in a bowl, throw it in the microwave that spins around for about a minute and a half, and you got SpaghettiOs. And
you have temperature of the sun, and you have to make sure you stir it and it cools down a little bit. But yes.
Yeah.
It's SpaghettiOs, not a sponsor of Ask
this
the
show.
Podcast Coach.
No,
SpaghettiOs,
but
not a sponsor.
I will admit I do have a can in the cabinet. I saw that and I was like, man, I haven't had SpaghettiOs in.
I know. I want some SpaghettiOs now.
Oh,
I think I'm gonna go get some for lunch.
Warning: if you watch the new Jerry Seinfeld movie on Netflix about Pop-Tarts, you will buy Pop-Tarts and probably Frosted Flakes the next time you go to the store.
Okay. All right.
I know I did. And I was like, I need Pop-Tarts, like a hole in the head.
They're so freaking good though.
I don't understand. I did this by accident. I accidentally bought, I didn't even know they made such a thing. I don't understand the purpose of making such a thing. They make unfrosted Pop-Tarts.
So you can put butter on them. You can put butter on them. Yeah. So you can put butter on. Those like McDonald's are always regret foods. It sounds good in the moment. You get the Pop-Tart from the vending machine, or you see them on sale for $2.49 at Walmart. The box, and it's blue and it's beautiful, and the picture on the front looks delicious, and you're like, I want one of these. And immediately you eat one and you're like, I regret this decision. Why did my stomach hurt? So why did I do this? So those fit into, it's like Daniel had said, the $1.49 hot dog at Costco. Immediate regret on that. It's listen, you get what you pay for, these friends, no matter what you do. Yeah. Although it is a little bit of a loss leader now for Costco, but I immediately stomach ache. You're saying, why did I do that?
Going back to Craig's question about what's the minimum, I do see people that are that have, thousands of downloads a month. And what they're doing is they're adding programmatic ads to their back catalog. So they I don't want to annoy people that are listening now, but they'll go back to things that are because they've been doing it a while. That's why they have thousands of downloads a month, and they'll add ads in the older one. And I was like, that's an interesting thing. And again, they end up paying for their hosting and a little more. And I was like, and that's where I think programmatic ads can kind of be, if you've got a lot of old catalog, back catalog episode, things like that. Yeah. For the most part, I'm not a fan of them. I'm just like, but when you got to eat, you got to eat.
Yeah. Well, but do you want, some of these, your back catalog could be a loss leader episode that brings somebody into what you're currently doing, right? And if you've loaded it up with ads and they click on the episode, hear your intro, then hear 3 ads, then get 7 minutes in, hear 3 more ads, however you're doing it, right? That could be a big turnoff too. So I think be careful with the monetization of your back catalog stuff, depending on how people are getting to your content. If you're just using those as cash machines, that may be stopping people from making the conversion. If that's how they're coming in and hearing about you, that may stop them from making it to subscribing and hearing your current content. So just be careful. I think it's the lesson there. Be careful with that.
It's tricky. What's not tricky, and
our awesome supporters, are they not tricky?
What did I miss in the chat room? You're laughing.
Ask Ralph. The Pop-Tart, he says, also known as crap tarts.
Yes, the great Jerry Seinfeld, he did a joke, and it was like, there's no expiration date on the Pop-Tart box because they were never fresh. It was like, yes, it's up there. But you know who loves Pop-Tarts? That's right.
Maybe not.
Or maybe not. Our awesome supporters. You can be an awesome supporter by going over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And of course, this show is brought to you by theschoolofpodcasting.com, where you get our awesome step-by-step courses. You get unlimited coaching. I had somebody last week, we actually had to get on a Zoom call and explain what unlimited coaching means. And it means this: if you look at the calendar and it says Dave's available on Thursday, you click it and there it is. And then you're like, well, what if I want it on Friday? I go, if it's open, you click it. It's unlimited. I've yet to have somebody say, I can't find a time when we're available. So, and then you got the awesome community. So people like Ask Ralph from Ask Ralph Podcast. And if you listen to the last episode of the School of Podcasting, which was episode number 932, we had Mark Lawley, who does the Practical Prepping Show. And he talked about sponsorships and affiliate stuff. And he actually kind of made the mistake. I would have used an affiliate link, but he had a friend and he just let them advertise for free. He didn't charge them, but he noticed that they sold some stuff. And that's when he was like, I have an engaged audience. And so that first one was a freebie. That freebie one could have been an affiliate link, but nonetheless, in this case, he's building his relationships with people. So I get it. If you want to check out Podpage, it's super easy. Use my affiliate link, speaking of affiliate links, at trypodpage.com. And if you want to learn Podpage for absolutely free, I got a free course at learnpodpage.com. And this show is running on Ecamm. And if you go to askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm, and it's 2 M's because, it's so good. And why is it askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm? That's guessed it. That's my affiliate link, kids. And why am I promoting this? Because it's a good product and I like it. And if I can earn a little bit of money on that, why not? If you want to, you can go over because, who doesn't need more Jim Cullison? He's right there. Look at him. Like, it's an amazing guy. All you have to do is go over to theaverageguy.tv and check out Jim and check out his show, Home Gadget Geeks. Always a good time with that. And it's now time for our awesome supporter of the week. Yes, I went over. Here's the thing I found out is that, come on, change. Oh, wait, I'm hitting the wrong button. This one. I went over and looked, and there were some people that were no longer awesome supporters that were on the wheel, and there were people that should have been on the wheel that weren't. And I checked. I have whitelisted Patreon to make sure all my stuff is on it. Not really sure. But here's the fun thing. The wrestling people, I forget the name of the show now because it's not on the wheel. But they actually, because they won so many times, they downsized their Patreon and I was like, no, but I appreciate the effort. But they were like, yeah, we want to let somebody else win. So, oh man,
that's nice.
I can see their logo. I can't remember the name of the show, but it was nice of them. And they're still a patron. So yes, if you don't want to be a $20 patron, you can still support the show. But these people that we're looking at are $20 patrons like Sonic Cupcake and Keep the Flame Alive and Live Well and Flourish. My buddy John Muntz, all of them there. Glenn, Ralph, Ross, and Greg over at Indie Drop In. And if we spin the wheel, Radio Free Pro Wrestling. Thank you, Randy Black. I'm drawing a blank here. And is it Ross Brand? It is Ross Brand. You got, oh, no. One little baby click. See, I said his name earlier. I said Glenn the Geek with his horse show. And that's Glenn. If you like Glenn, go over to horseradionetwork.com. And he's got tons of podcasts about horses. And I actually at one point got to feed Scooter because Glenn lives in Florida, and I was at Podfest or something and was at Glenn's house. And me being a guitar player, I do not like things that can take off a digit. And so I was very nervous going, here, have a carrot. Please don't eat my hand. But I was able to do it, overcame my fears. So check out Glenn, horseradionetwork.com. And if this show saves you time, saves you money, saves you headaches, maybe even keeps you educated, you can go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And you know who went the extra mile? If I say Yellow Studio to you, Jim, what name comes to mind?
Randy Cantrell.
Randy Cantrell down in Yellow Studio. He sent me some money. He contacted me and sent me money via Zelle, I think it was. So thank you for that, Randy. Find him. Leaning Towards Wisdom is the show. He's got a couple shows, but I know I listen to Leaning Towards Wisdom with Randy Cantrell.
You do a pretty good Randy.
He's got the ever so slight. He's not he's not Forrest Gump, but it's his accent that G is leaning, like that's Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump would be leaning, but he leaned wisdom.
Sorry, Randy. Sorry,
he's such a good guy. That is a show. When I talk about laugh, cry, think, groan, educate or entertain, that's definitely a thinking show. That is one
for sure. He puts a lot. He puts a lot of thought into his shows. If there's anybody who thinks a lot, I mean, he keeps a list of topics and he writes some stuff and thinks about it. And so, Randy's not a guy who's necessarily coming to a show on like this one on the fly, right? He is thinking through his shows. So that if you haven't checked that out, Leaning Toward Wisdom, it's a good one.
I'm going nuts here because behind the scenes we're talking about ads. And I clipped, first of all, I use this tool that lets me share one mouse with multiple computers. And I don't know what's going on, but there are times when I just want my mouse to go about 10 inches to the right and it's just not behaving. But I cannot find this clip. It's where this guy from Oxford Road was talking about. So this is a company that basically deals with auto ads or just ads in general. They have a show that will critique, like, how well did it do? And I'm going nuts because I cannot find this clip. I know it's somewhere. But he said, because the problem that's going on with ads is there's now like a whole other industry that's coming along that will basically stalk your show, listen to everything. They even were mentioning how there was somebody on Patreon that got kicked off of Patreon because of something they did outside of their show, which I was like, that's a little weird. But they have all this stuff, and then it's making sure it's brand safe. And the head of Oxford Road said, they were at the upfronts in New York, and he said, somebody needs to say this. This isn't working. Like trying to get people, because we want to make it easy for the advertisers to buy, and they do that. This is how it made it by having 11 categories. And after they stalk your show, they're going to transcribe it. And then AI, our good buddy AI, is then going to tell you, okay, well, this scores a number 4 in this category and a 6 in this one. And ooh, it's a number 1 in this category. So maybe, they said booger twice, whatever it is. And he's like, yeah, this isn't working. And I was on a game show with Jen Hardy and her kids. And it was basically Gen X versus Gen Y-ish, whatever, Z, yeah. And the young kids today, these kids today had so much slang that I had no idea what they were talking about. You know, like cap and like all sorts of just, you know,
res.
yeah. And I just didn't get it. And so I was like, so how is AI gonna know that the bomb means good to an older person? But you know, or if we went like into the 70s, man, that is bad, right? Well, bad meant good in the same way. And there were things that the young kids are saying that sounds bad, but it means good because it's cool and it's slang. And I'm like, AI is never going to catch on to that. And I think that's why and to me, just the fact that it put it into 11 categories, and I'm like, so the goal of this was to make it easy for the buyers. And we did this by making 11 categories to filter. I'm just like, come on, kids.
It's hard. It's hard.
I still don't understand why I can't just, like today, right? I could say, hey, the words and opinions expressed today do not necessarily are, how did that used to go? The words and opinions expressed by today do not necessarily reflect those of our sponsors and our blah, blah, blah. So, you know, if ECAM gets a bunch of things like, hey, Dave Jackson said Germans sound angry when they say things, they can say, look, man, the words and opinions of Dave Jackson do not necessarily reflect those. He said that in the show. And I'm not quite sure why that doesn't work. Like, it sounds too easy, and we can't pay people then to put things into 11 categories. I just like, you know, and he did say one thing very smart. He said the problem isn't so much with the AI and the words, it's how people react to them. And I felt like going, dude, good luck with that. If you're trying to say what we need to do is remove cancel culture. And I'm like, hey, I agree with that. Let's go to council culture and maybe talk to each other a little more. But I was like trying to get rid of cancel culture. So people are like, hey, he said, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm me, you know, and off they come with the pitchforks and all that other stuff. So I'll be interesting to see. Daniel says, how will an AI know that using the N-word is racially only by, oh yeah, you think about that. All right. You listen to a Kevin Hart thing or a Chris Rock thing, N-word all over the place. Is that going to be a new podcasting 2.0 tag? What is your skin color? So we can determine if your brain, you know, that it's interesting. Speaking of podcasting 2.0, Spotify, first of all, I can't wait to see pictures because I think it's over. This might be the last day of the podcast show in London. From what I hear, they had 10,000 people. And it's cool because I went last year with Libsyn, and they have like what looks like a big aircraft, not arena, but this building with this big high ceiling, and it's beautiful. 10,000 people in there would be a lot of people. But from what I've heard, Spotify had a huge display, and it was, in fact, walled. Like you couldn't see what was in. I from what I hear, I haven't seen pictures yet to verify this, but everybody was kind of making jokes about, did you see the Spotify thing? You can't see in it. And I was like, well, how very Spotify of them. But they apparently have come out now with chapters, and in true Spotify fashion, nobody can really figure out exactly what they're using to identify their chapters. And I guess you can go in and turn them off because they're making automatic kind of chapters. And yes, Daniel hit it on the head. It's a hanger. It's kind of a big old hanger that looked like planes used to be in it. But it's a bummer because Apple came out, everybody was all giddy, I tell you, because they used the podcasting 2.0 space tag for transcripts. And if Spotify had done that, that would have been huge because we are getting to, you know, people talk about podcasting as the wild, wild west. Well, Fountain does transcripts, you know, Apple does their like if we just had, so if you wanted like, hey, I made this transcript to make sure that, you know, maybe there's a name that's kind of hard to spell and you know, everything's going to get it wrong with transcripts, you could fix it, have this one transcript and be able to go in and say, hey, everybody, this is the source of truth for my show. And you can't because everybody's making their own transcripts. And I was like, and then nobody still has answered the question, what if somehow Spotify gets it wrong and makes it look like I beat my wife, which don't have one. But anyway, like if it makes you say something wrong or whatever, like, how's that going to go down? I don't know. Here's something. What do you think of this idea, Jim? Because I use Podpage, obviously. I just mentioned that. And when you put a transcript in a Podpage, it makes your page really, really long, and the transcript's way at the bottom. I'm thinking of putting in the transcript field to see the transcript of this show. Go to, askthepodcastcoach.com/follow, where the transcript will be in the app. Because transcripts on a website are really long, and it just makes it look like, again, they're not ugly, they're not bad. I'm just like, and I never edit them. They're always unedited, so they're always, because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
But what do you think of letting people know on the website, if you want to see a transcript, do it in an app? So,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's as long as you got it somewhere, right, or available. For Home Gadget Geeks, I was doing transcripts for a long time. Just nobody was looking at them, and so I just said transcripts available upon request. And I've had one request, and since I probably changed that 4 years ago, and I've had one request. I just dropped it into Otter and let it transcribe it and then send it to the individual. It's a lot easier than having it available. Yeah, I'm missing out on some SEO and some other things by not having those transcripts in my show notes, quite possibly. But it just wasn't, the other thing I've thought is in the same vein as this is with Otter, you have the ability to get a URL for your transcript, and you could just drop the URL in and say, hey, go over to Otter, and it's available there. And they've got some chat GPT functions where you can ask some things of the transcript, and it just sends an AI request to the transcripts and brings it back. Super helpful in that regard. I can say things like, somebody else taught me this. I can say, maybe you taught me this. Hey, bring me back all the product names we mentioned. Was that you?
That was me.
Did you tell me that? Yeah. Bring back all the product names that we mentioned in this. Wow, that's for my podcast. That's gold.
And I also asked it for what URLs were mentioned.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I did that I think I was using Chat or Cast Magic, and it said, I don't think we can do that. And then it did it. And I was like, okay. So, yeah.
I'm not sure I can do this work, but there it is.
Yeah.
That's a good. So I could send people to Otter as opposed to having it on my own website. Now, do I want that? Is that the experience that I want? I'm not sure. I didn't do it because I'm not sure that's what I want.
Yeah. Before transcripts were like the whoop-de-doo, I would occasionally I'd put it as a PDF. I would upload it to Libsyn as a file for download only, so it wasn't in the feed, and then I would link to it, because then I could track how many people were using the transcript, and the answer, much like Jim said, was nobody. And so you want to be empathetic to anyone who can't hear the show, and so that's where I'm like, and you just said that, like, I might lose some SEO, and I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. That's something.
I'm not sure I was getting any SEO from it, just to be honest.
Well, that's
the audience is different too at Gallup, and they expect it. And I actually get comments back. We do a full transcript, full edited transcript. We provide some pull quotes at the very beginning to say, hey, here's some moments in the podcast you might want to pay attention to. I mean, if I'm going to have an editor in the transcript editing it, I might as well have him looking for good quotes while he's doing it, because he's making the edits. So I just say, hey, listen for a few good quotes as you're listening to this, and we can pull those out. But I get from time to time, because we are in an education space, I get folks who say, thank you for providing the transcripts. I really appreciate that. I've got somebody who needed them. So 2 different audiences, 2 different recommendations. Home Gadget Geeks is a hobby podcast. I just don't get the audience that wants it. Home Gadget Geek, the Gallup podcast stuff, way more listeners, and they appreciate it, and so we do it.
Yeah, when I think about it, I've never had anybody ask for a transcript, and that might be something like when you go to a restaurant and you're checking out, and they go, "How was everything?" and you go, fine, instead of saying, well, my Coke was warmer than my meal. Sometimes people don't just say anything, they just leave. So that's the tricky part. So, I'll just say yes steps. Go ahead.
Your topic may also be when you think about who would read a transcript, there may be
Right.
some accessibility issues there. And because you talk to podcasters, that there may not be as many who would need to read it as opposed to listen to it in its form. And so your audience, you just may lean that way. I love the idea of saying transcripts to be so you're accessible, to say transcripts available upon request. Somebody gets it. We have all the tools now to be able to do that. You could drop it in anything, get a transcript, and get that back to somebody super fast. It's also a great opportunity to say, tell me a little bit about your disability and how else can I help you in this regard. I mean, listen, imagine you get somebody who's struggling to listen to it and you provide ways for them to consume your content. You might have a follower for life at that point if you make that available to them in that way.
That's it. And you said something that really hit the nail on the head. It really depends on the audience. Like Craig, who does Ingles podcast, where he's teaching people English. We monetize our transcripts because they're really valuable for language learners. And then Ralph said he actually had a client say she basically reads my show. So yeah, we kind of assume that's from a transcript. And that's where I think the thing why I'm not quite as crazy about transcripts, I write a blog post for my show notes. So you kind of don't need a transcript. Just read what I've already written and you're good to go. So, oh, wait a minute. He's back.
Hey, is it time to end the show? I have to go to the store and buy some yogurt.
Oh, see, that wasn't as.
Okay, that's what it said. Ugh was this time. That thing where he's falling off a cliff. This is.
Oh.
That sounds like he's looking at. Yeah, sounds like he's looking at a baby. Oh, like okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
Trying to read some context into the sentence, right?
Well, I mean, it's literally, I just replaced the last sentence this time. And like that ugh is the same ugh from last. I didn't change the spelling or anything like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Jody says, I write a blog post as well with a show, audio player, basically at the top of the blog post. Yeah. I do that just to, I have to figure out what I'm trying to say. And so by writing a blog post, it flesh outs, okay, this is not what I'm going to talk about. This is what I want to focus on. This is a good point. It just helps me get focused. That's why I do that. So it's always kind of fun. So,
yeah. Well, you can do whatever you want. This is good. Here's the good news. You can do whatever you want.
It's your show. Yeah. But she says, I really like the idea of saying transcript available upon request. Yeah, that would be interesting.
It's just a good thing to cover you. It's a nice thing to cover you. And that's an easy fix today and doesn't add any more work to your workflow. But if that is also an indicator, if you got a bunch of requests, just make it available.
But if that's for people that can't hear, how are they going to hear you say transcripts available by request?
Well, they're gonna read it. I put it in the show notes.
Got it. There you go. Okay,
it's in the show notes. So I'll say, find us here. Transcripts available upon request. Type deal.
There we go. We're getting more as we're winding up here. DR. It's not just for people with hearing disabilities. Some people with traumatic brain injury, which my brother is, can't take in the info as quickly as it's being delivered, so they find it more comfortable reading it. That's a really good point.
Right on.
Yep.
No, right on.
There you go. Thank you, DR.
Accessibility issue. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, what's coming up on Home Gadget Geeks?
Gretchen Schoenstein. She ran 100 half marathons over the course of a decade. She has an autoimmune disease, and her doctor said she would never run again. And she was like, "Well, sorry about that, but I'm gonna." And so she ran 100 half marathons over a decade, and we talk a little bit about grit, a little bit of technology in there, but it's more of a story. I was more interested in talking a story than I was necessarily technology, but available now, homegadgetgeeks.com.
My brain can't comprehend that. 100 marathons,
100 half marathons over the course of a decade, but
still 13 miles or whatever.
She had some serious autoimmune disease issues with her body. It just attacks her body. That's the amazing thing, is that she could do that. She could run 100 half marathons. She concluded it with 2 in a weekend. She ran one Saturday and then got on a plane, flew across the country, and ran another one on Sunday. She told me she paid for it. She's
Yeah,
like,
I bet.
that was not easy. So, anyways, it's a good story.
On the School of Podcasting, I have the question of the month, and the question of the month was, are you a person that's doing nothing with YouTube? Are you uploading static videos to YouTube? Are you doing full YouTube? Because everybody's saying, oh, you have to be on video. And I was like, and everybody says all the podcasters are now doing video. I was like, are they really? Let's find out. I haven't listened to the answers yet. I'm dying to hear it. But that's coming up on this next episode of the School of Podcasting. And then a week after that, I think I'm going to be doing the one about what makes something good. I got Matt Cundill from Sound Off Podcast is coming up. It's all there. And we're here every week. AskThePodcastCoach.com/live. Thanks for tuning in, listening, whatever. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that fun stuff.